Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the newest installment of our Collider Star Wars Rebels recap and review show. I am one of your hosts. My name is John Campea. I'm so glad you guys are joining us. I are overwhelmed by how much of a positive response you guys gave us about us actually doing Rebels. We questioned a little bit whether we should do Rebels, but clearly you guys wanted Rebels, and we're so glad that you did, because here we are again for episode 2. I am, of course, joined by my other co-host, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian?
I am super excited to be here again with you, John, talking Star Wars Rebels, and what a week for Collider this week talking Star Wars with reaction videos to the trailers, to the Special Jedi Council episode, and now we get to talk about Rebels. We still trying to figure out if this is episode 2 or episode 4. We'll figure it out in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, I think for argument's sake, for now, until I see more to correct us, we'll call it episode 4 for argument, because the official listing they sent me was like episode 204, so I mean season 2, episode 4. So for now, we'll call it 4 until something else comes up, and we'll call it something else. This episode, of course, tonight was Relics of the Old Republic, picking up from where we left off last week. We had Kanan and the crew gone to find Captain Rex. They find him. They get double-crossed by Wolf, who is apologetic for it. And apparently all you have to do is apologize and everything's fine. So he apologized for it, but the Empire is now on its way. And that's where this show picks up. So let's start about the things we liked about this episode tonight. Kristian, let's start with you. You saw this like weeks ago, long before I saw it.
Yeah.
So from what your old memory can recall...
I'm a relic of the Old Republic.
Things you loved about this episode of Rebels.
I liked the more serious tone, and I loved the AT-ATs on sand. That to me was amazing to watch them, because the only time I really remember them, I guess you saw them a little bit in Endor-ish, but they weren't really the AT-ATs.
That one walking beside the battle platform when Luke comes to Vader for the first time, it's a full four-legged AT-AT outside of it.
Right, but I mean,
not in action.
You don't see him in action. You certainly don't see him in the sand, and to watch that happen and the sound of it all. And this is the one thing that I had mentioned to you many times, is like the feel that it is Star Wars, and how the people behind it with Dave Filoni and Kinberg, like, this is Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars with them. And I love how the crew is in unison right now, because we know eventually there's going to be something's going to happen with them. But right now, the team is in their prime. And the team of Kanan and Ezra, and they're really working together well. And I love the idea that it's called Relics of the Old Republic, and referring to Rex and the other clones as well. And they're helping him out getting these other plans. And you can see that Rex really does want to help. And what I really liked was the reunion at the end with Rex and Ahsoka, and then the debut of we know it now as the fifth brother. Sounds like Antonio Banderas, and we're going to have him as the next Inquisitor, along with the seventh sister. So there was, and I love the shot that Rex took at the stormtroopers, by the way, too, and also knowing. So if anybody ever asks you whether or not stormtroopers are clones, tell them from Rex's mouth, they certainly are not.
No, they are not clones. I got to tell you, I loved Siege of Lothal. And last week's episode I liked. But I believe this week's episode stepped it up. Yeah. There was so much. We talk often about how Rebels doesn't just feel like a show trying to be Star Wars. It is Star Wars. Yeah. You know, when we had a Callus in the Walker, and in the Walker Commander helmet, it took me back to General Veers and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, and then even some classic Star Wars lines, concentrate forward firepower and all that kind of stuff. The way they moved, even the way they first see them coming, it was so reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, when that one dude's looking through the binoculars and just vaguely sees them through the mist in the distance in the snow. It was the same kind of introduction of them, and it felt so good to see that. And I'm going to tell you, this is the thing I loved most about this episode, by far. It's once they get into the sandstorm. To me, it so felt like Hunt for Red October. Yeah. It felt like Hunt for Red. It felt like a great submarine World War II kind of game of chess battle going on. It was great. And oh my God, like, okay, you have to understand, I come from a visual effects background. I was a producer and a guy at a visual effects company for a number of years. The particle effects, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, the particle effects were used so gorgeously, because that sandstorm with the close-up shots and whatever, it looked amazing. I'm watching this show yesterday, And I was fortunate enough to see a copy of the show yesterday. I'm watching it, and I'm just like, this looks outstanding.
Yeah.
Absolutely outstanding.
And it's great that you say that, and you're coming from your background as well too, because there were a lot of complaints in like the first 2 episodes of season 1. They were trying to get a hold of the animation, because remember the Wookiees looked terrible in the pilot.
Yeah, that was more of a design issue. It was, but yeah, you're right.
It was, and they've clearly they're developing it, and they're making it, and they listen. This is another thing that they do so well, is they listen to the complaints that are coming out there from the fans, like things that maybe is an overwhelming concern they've worked on, and this show is gorgeous now. I love the animation of it. And I also really liked the use of the Force, of where Kanan is growing as a Jedi, Ezra is growing as well too, and they had to use their abilities as Jedi in order to save them. And I love that the tactical moves of what they did using Rex to be able to do that as well. And I love the fact the arc of where Kanan had to go and get over his issues to go back and save the clones. I thought that was a great moment, and it also I think it's going to form a relationship with Kanan and Rex, a mutual respect for this upcoming season.
You know, I was chatting with some people about Rex who saw last week's not about Rex, but about Kanan from last week's episode, saying, you know, hey, Kanan's supposed to have Jedi training. I do not like that he was holding that grudge against Rex. He should have gotten over it. Blah blah blah. It's like, don't underestimate how deep the wound is for Kanan. It was the clones that he watched. Now, it wasn't the clones' fault, maybe, but it was the clones that he saw turn and kill his master and try to kill him as a little boy and wiped out the Jedi.
Well, those are the person who asked that question. I'm curious if they have either read New Dawn or read the comics of Kanan, because the turmoil that he went through is very clear of what he had to do and the anger that was building up, and how he went away from his Jedi training. He pushed it aside. He didn't want to be a Jedi for a very long time. Yeah. He changed his name to Kanan. Kanan Jarrus isn't even his real name. He wanted away from it. It was Hera who, when they met in New Dawn, that was able to get him back on the path of...
What's his real name? Caleb?
Caleb Dune.
Yeah, Caleb Dune.
And that was... It's all of that. And I recommend, if you want to learn more about why Kanan is that way, to start with the Kanan comic written by Greg Weisman. You should check that out.
Speaking of Greg Weisman, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Greg Weisman, by the way, is going to be a guest on Jedi Council tomorrow.
Yeah, so writer of the Kanan comic book, was one of the showrunners of Rebel Season 1,
I believe, yes.
We're really excited about having him on there tomorrow. So that whole scene in the sandstorm, that game of cat and mouse, I thought the tension was palatable. I felt it. Yeah. I thought it was great. It was a new level for Rebels to me, because it was something we have never seen them do before like that. I'm not saying it's the best episode they've ever done, but they introduced an element. They showed us a new tool in their kit that they have not brought out before to really make a great suspenseful action sequence that I was hooked. I mean, I was glued to my screen during that whole scene. And then even the whole plan of trying to get the cannon lined up with the neck.
Right.
And when they take the one out, hightail, there's your open and go. And like all that kind of stuff. I like the way Kanan and Ezra were working through using the Force to kind of navigate what they're doing, understanding where they're... I like that Rex, this is old hat. He knows what the Jedi can do more than these Jedi know that they can do. Yeah. He's telling the Jedi, you go do this and you go do this because you're the boss. And Kanan's like very reluctant. Okay, I'm in charge.
And I love that line. Feels like the old times.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was great. And all those moments. And the other thing that I really enjoyed was Callus being kind of front and center as the villain again, because you have David Oyelowo as Callus here, and
so good at the voice,
so good, and he's just been a little overshadowed because you had Vader, you're
going to be overshadowed,
and you're going to have these Inquisitors and stuff too, but you have to realize how this guy is going to be a thorn in their side for a very long time, and you saw that again in this one. He's still hunting them. He's relentless, and I really I liked him being back as the main baddie in this one.
I also like that one line when Kanan is reluctantly taking charge there, and then he says, "Do you trust me?" And Rex goes, "I always trust my general."
Yeah,
and then and that takes Kanan back a little bit, but I just thought that was great. And then also to me, my next favorite moment was that moment at the end between Rex and Ahsoka. Like that was very well played out. Yeah. I thought they played, that could have felt sappy, it could have felt forced, but they didn't. The timing of the scene was great. How long they stood face to face shaking hands first, and then when the hug happens, and stuff like that, it felt great.
Yeah.
It really did. It was aces across the board.
Yeah.
All right, well, not every episode is going to do everything perfectly. What do you think might be one or two things they might have been able to do a little bit better in this episode?
I mean, I think that the quick tease of the new Inquisitor could have been handled a little better, because I think that they probably could have debuted both of them at the same time, because the reveal of when you're expecting Vader and then this guy shows up, and I think they were expecting a moment of like, uh-oh, who's this guy? And then you're just like, okay, this is the new bad guy, which is fine. I don't know if it had the impact on me the way that maybe it was intended. And I would have liked to seen Sabine do a little more, I think, in the battle. She did some stuff, but I want to see her step up as a character. I think that she's going to, even in the previews that we've seen so far from her, she is going to have a bigger role this season. But I might have wanted to see her do a little more this episode. That's it.
Yeah, to me, a weakness of the episode, I'm grasping at straws here, to be honest. I think Wolf, and I forget the name of the other clone off the top of my head.
Shoot. It's let me think about it.
They come across a little bit as comic relief, a little bit too much to me. These are soldiers, and I'd like to be reminded of that a little bit.
Gregor.
But I didn't. Yeah, but I didn't mind them that much. I mean, like I said, I'm grasping for what I can think of as what are my negatives of this episode. Okay, if I had to find something, maybe I would have liked to seen them not be so one-note comic relief. I would have liked to seen a little bit more from the other two clones, because we get that out of Rex. Rex is very three-dimensional, and I like to see that a little bit more with his partners there. That would be cool too. All right, folks, well, listen, one of the things we'd like to do every episode on our Collider Rebels recap is to take some of your questions via Twitter. And how do you get questions to us via Twitter? Simply send out a tweet and use the hashtag Collider Rebels. Send that out, and we will get our hands to it here. And I'm going to read a couple now. The first one comes from Nerd Narration, who writes...
Great name.
Yes, it is. Do you think Vader will have the chance to show mercy to Ahsoka and doesn't take it?
Ooh, I love
opposite of his choice to Luke in Return of the Jedi? Kristian, what do you think?
Love that question, and I absolutely think that is a possibility. And how powerful and devastating would it be if he has her in the corner and very reminiscent to Empire, and he's just... I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that cut and dry, though, where you're just going to have a one-on-one battle and then Vader takes her out. I think that there's going to be something a lot more dramatic that happens. I
agree. I think the Nerd Narration is absolutely right when he says, will he get the chance to show mercy? I think so. I think we're going to see when he ultimately faces Ahsoka. And remember, we don't know for a fact that fight's ever going to happen. We're just assuming it's going to happen, right? So I think there's going to come a moment in that fight where he is going to have that same moment of self-doubt like he had with Luke. And he decided he didn't want to destroy him.
Right.
And where he's going to wrestle with that for a minute and then goes ahead and destroys her.
Yeah.
And I do think that moment's going to, so I do think you're right. I think that opportunity is going to present itself to Vader to show mercy, and he will not take the opportunity to show mercy there.
Yeah, and if Dave Filoni you're watching, you can take that idea.
All right, this next question comes from Pasha Rizova, who writes, we know Ahsoka will probably die. Yeah, that's what we think. If she is killed by Vader, is he irredeemable? I think so. Not the same impact as the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi. If he does kill Ahsoka, and we are assuming he does that make Vader irredeemable? No, we already know he does get redemption at the end.
Right, but I guess she's also asking, does that mean that it takes away from the fact that when he does come back that it doesn't matter because he's done this horrible thing? Well, he's already killed a bunch of kids. He's already gone in and wiped out a bunch of... He's already hunted down. We haven't even seen... We know of the worst of Vader, but we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen the purge of all the Jedi. Remember that Revenge of the Sith, he killed a bunch of Jedi, but he didn't kill all of them. He and the Emperor and these Inquisitors hunted down Jedi and killed them all. Or what we're also learning is recruited Force ability children as well, too. So he's done horrible things that killing Ahsoka will just be one more on that belt of horrible.
Yeah. And, one other thing I forgot to mention this about that I thought was an interesting thing they did in the show, this episode. So Callus is on the surface hunting them down, and his support, the Star Destroyer, takes off.
Right.
Because they got a call from Vader. when Vader calls, you drop what you're doing and you go do whatever Vader says, clearly. But I remember when he picks up, when the, I can't remember if it was an admiral or the captain, picks up the Inquisitor. I'm really glad that the captain brought up, we had them, and us coming to pick you up put that mission in jeopardy. Right. I'm really glad he brought that up, because I remember thinking the same thing. You just had the rebels cornered, and you pulled them away, and then they addressed it by the captain bringing it up. I was really happy that they did that.
It was a good moment.
They refused to leave a dangling issue there. I thought they tied that up really nice. Well, listen, folks, that will do it for us for this installment of our Collider Rebels recap and review show. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Make sure you jump down to the comments section below and tell us what you loved about this episode, maybe things you thought were weak about the episode, and let us know some of your theories about where we may go next week. I want to thank, of course, my co-host right here, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Kristian Harloff, but you can also find me on Collider Jedi Council. Normally every Thursdays. We just did a episode on Monday talking about the newest trailer for The Force Awakens. Please go and check that out if you haven't already. And like John mentioned earlier, we're going to have Greg Weisman on the show tomorrow talking about Kanan. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll talk about what's the deal with Kanan tomorrow, so check it out.
And of course, you guys can just follow me on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. That'll do it for us, guys. Make sure you come back and join us again for this episode next week, and until then, bye-bye.